I want to start with a question. What would you do if you discovered that the most beautiful thing in your life had been hiding inside the one thing you were taught to fear? Imagine you grew up in a house with a locked room. Everyone told you that behind that door was something dangerous, something evil, something that would destroy you if you ever opened it. You were told this by your parents, your teachers, your neighbors, your entire society, and you believed them. Of course you believed them. Why would everyone you love and trust lie to you? And then one day, by accident or by curiosity, or by something you cannot explain, you open the door. And behind it is not a monster. Behind it is a garden. The most beautiful garden you've ever seen. Flowers you did not know existed. Colors you did not know were real. Air so clean and sweet that your first breath makes you dizzy. That is what happened to me. The locked room was Christianity. The garden was Jesus. And the house I grew up in was Pakistan. My name is Rizwan. I am 31 years old. I am from Lahore, the cultural capital of Pakistan, a city of 13 million people, ancient Mughal architecture, the best food in South Asia, and a blasphemy law that can get you killed for saying the wrong thing about religion. This is my story, and I want to tell it with a smile. Not because it was easy, it was the hardest thing I have ever done, but because what I found on the other side of the hard was so good, so beautiful, so life-giving, that the hard was worth it. Every bit of it. So let me tell you about the garden. Lahore is a city that gets into your blood. If you have been there, you know what I mean. If you have not, let me try to paint it for you. Imagine a city that is simultaneously ancient and alive. Mughal-era mosques with minarets that pierce the sky, standing next to modern shopping malls. Narrow streets in the old walled city where you can smell spices and leather and history, opening onto wide boulevards with honking traffic and billboards. The Badshahi Mosque, one of the largest in the world, sitting like a crown above the city, its red sandstone glowing in the evening. The food, my God, the food. Lahori food is legendary. Nihari on a cold morning, paya simmering in a pot, Sikh kebabs from the street vendors on Food Street, the smoke rising into the neon-lit night. Kulfi from a man pushing a cart with a bell. If you have not eaten in Lahore, you have not really eaten. I grew up in a neighborhood called Gulberg, a middle-class residential area in the heart of the city. My family was Punjabi, Sunni Muslim, educated, and respectable. We were not wealthy, but we were comfortable. We had a house with a small courtyard, a car, a television, and enough food that nobody went hungry. By Pakistani standards, we were doing well. My father, Tariq, was an engineer. He worked for a construction firm and spent most of his time at project sites around Punjab. He was a practical man. Numbers, blueprints, measurements. He approached everything with the precision of an engineer, including his faith. He prayed 5 times a day at exactly the right times. He fasted during Ramadan with discipline. He paid his zakat, the annual charitable tax, to the exact percentage. Islam, for my father, was a system, a well-designed system with clear inputs and outputs. Follow the rules, get the reward. It was engineering applied to theology. My mother, Amina, was the warmth of our household. She was a school teacher. She taught Urdu literature at a girls' school, and she had a love for language, for poetry, for stories. She was the one who filled our house with books, who read Urdu poets to us at night, who taught me that words could be beautiful, not just functional. She was also deeply religious. But her religion was different from my father's. Where his was systematic, hers was emotional. She wept during Miladun Nabi, the celebration of the Prophet's birthday. She sang Nats, devotional songs praising Muhammad, with a voice that could make the walls tremble. She felt her faith in a way that my father calculated. I have one older sister, Sana, and one younger brother. Sana was studious, quiet, and married young to a businessman from Islamabad. Bilal was mischievous, athletic, and the source of most of the noise in our house. We were a typical Pakistani family, loving, loud, opinionated, and deeply embedded in a social fabric woven from Islam, family honor, and community reputation. Let me explain something about Pakistan that outsiders often miss. In Pakistan, Islam is not just a religion. It is the national identity. Pakistan was literally created as a homeland for Muslims. It was carved out of British India in 1947, specifically so that the Muslims of the subcontinent would have their own country. The very name, Pakistan, means land of the pure. Islam is in the constitution. It is in the education system. It is in the legal code. It is in the air you breathe. And within this Islamic framework, there is a blasphemy law. Section 295C of the Pakistan Penal Code states that anyone who defiles the name of the Prophet Muhammad can be sentenced to death. This law has been used and abused to persecute minorities, settle personal scores, and silence dissent. It hangs over the country like a sword, and everyone knows it is there. You do not need to be charged with blasphemy to feel its weight. The mere accusation, a rumor, a whisper, a neighbor's complaint, can destroy your life. Mobs have lynched people on the basis of blasphemy accusations before any court could even examine the evidence. In this environment, questioning Islam is not just socially unacceptable, it is potentially lethal. And converting from Islam to another religion? That is, in the eyes of most Pakistanis, the ultimate blasphemy. There is no specific law against apostasy in Pakistan, but the blasphemy law, combined with social pressure and mob violence, makes conversion extraordinarily dangerous. This is the world I was born into. This is the world I had to navigate when everything changed. I was always curious. That is the thread that runs through my entire story. Curiosity, not rebelliousness, not anger, not dissatisfaction, just curiosity, a genuine, insatiable desire to understand things. As a child, I asked questions constantly. Why is the sky blue? How do airplanes stay in the air? Why do people die? My father loved my questions when they were about physics and engineering. He would sit with me and explain principle, draw a diagram, show me how things worked. He was a natural teacher, and my curiosity delighted him. But my curiosity did not stop at the physical, it extended to the metaphysical. I asked questions about God, about the afterlife, about the meaning of life. And here, the answers became less satisfying. Why did God create us? To worship Him. But why does an all-powerful God need worship? He does not need it, He deserves it. But if He does not need it, why did He create beings specifically to do it? Do not ask such questions, Rizwan. Just have faith. Why are there so many different religions if only one is true? Because Shaitan leads people astray. But the people in other religions seem sincere. They pray, they fast, they do good deeds. Are they all led astray? Yes. Islam is the only truth. But how do we know that? Every religion says it is the only truth, because the Quran says so. But every holy book says it is the truth. How do we know the Quran is different? Do not ask such questions, Rizwan. Just have faith. Do not ask such questions. I heard that phrase so many times growing up that it became a kind of refrain in my life, a locked door that I kept bumping into. And behind that locked door, the questions kept accumulating, piling up like letters in a mailbox that nobody opened. But I was a good Muslim boy. I pushed the questions down and I performed. I prayed. I fasted. I attended the madrasa on weekends, where I memorized Quran and learned Islamic studies. I was obedient. I was respectful. I did not challenge my teachers or my parents. I swallowed my curiosity and smiled and said, "Gee, sir. Yes, sir," and moved on. I went to university, the Lahore University of Management Sciences, known as LUMS, one of the best universities in Pakistan. I studied computer science. My father was proud. Technology was the future. I was set for a good career, a good marriage, a good life within the respectable boundaries of Pakistani Muslim society. But the curiosity was still there. And university, with its libraries and its internet, and its exposure to diverse ideas, was exactly the environment that curiosity. At LUMS, I met a man who would change the trajectory of my life. His name was Daniel. Daniel was a Pakistani Christian. This itself was unusual in my social circle. Christians in Pakistan are a small minority, about 2 to 3% of the population, and they are among the most marginalized communities in the country. Most Pakistani Christians are poor, working as sanitation workers, brick kiln laborers, or domestic servants. They are often referred to by the derogatory term chura, a caste-based slur that implies impurity and low status. They face discrimination in education, employment, housing, and social interaction. They are the bottom of the Pakistani social hierarchy, but Daniel was different. He was at LUMS on a scholarship, which meant he was exceptionally smart. He was studying economics. He was articulate, confident, and completely unapologetic about his faith. He did not hide it. He did not downplay it. He wore a small cross on a chain around his neck, visible, unapologetic, and in the context of a Pakistani university, almost provocatively brave. We became friends through a shared interest in debate. LUMS had a debating society, and both Daniel and I were members. We debated politics, economics, philosophy, ethics. Daniel was a formidable debater, logical, clear, persuasive. He could construct an argument the way my father constructed a building, brick by brick, each one supporting the next, until the structure was undeniable. Our friendship developed slowly. In Pakistan, friendships between Muslims and Christians are rare, not because of personal animosity, but because of social segregation. You stay with your own. You marry within your group. You socialize within your circle. Crossing those boundaries is not forbidden, exactly, but it is noticed. And in a society where reputation is everything, being noticed for the wrong reasons can be costly. But Daniel and I clicked. We shared a love of idea, of debate, of pushing boundaries. We talked about everything, except religion. That was the one topic we avoided. Not by explicit agreement, but by instinct. Religion was a minefield. One wrong step and the friendship could explode. Until one evening, about 2 years into our friendship, when the minefield became unavoidable. We were sitting in a coffee shop near campus, a small, dimly lit place where students went to argue and pretend they were intellectuals. We had been debating the nature of justice, specifically whether true justice was possible in a corrupt system, and the conversation had gotten deep, philosophical, personal. And then Daniel said something that cracked open a door I had been keeping locked for years. He said, "You know, Rizwan, I think justice is impossible without love. And I do not mean the abstract concept of, I mean the radical, self-sacrificing, enemy-embracing kind of love. The kind that chooses to absorb injustice rather than perpetuate." I said, "That sounds nice in theory, but who actually lives like that?" And Daniel said very quietly, "Jesus did." The air between us changed. We both felt it. Daniel had just stepped onto the minefield, and instead of running, he stood there, steady, waiting to see what would happen. I could have changed the subject. I could have laughed it off. I could have said, "Let us not go there." But the curiosity, that relentless, irrepressible curiosity, would not let me. I said, "Tell me about that. Tell me about the love of Jesus." And Daniel, with the skill of a debater and the heart of a believer, told me. Not in a preachy way, not in a proselytizing way, in a conversational way, the way you tell a friend about someone you love. He told me about the Sermon on the Mount, love your enemies, pray for those who persecute. He told me about the woman caught in adultery, let the one without sin cast the first stone. He told me about the parable of the Good Samaritan, a despised outsider helping a wounded stranger when the religious leaders walked past. He told me about the cross, a God who did not just talk about love but demonstrated it by dying for the very people who were killing him. I sat and listened, and something inside me that had been locked for 20 years slowly, carefully, began to open. Not all the way, just a crack, but a crack is all the light needs. After that conversation, I began a secret exploration of Christianity. I want to emphasize the word secret. In Pakistan, this is not a casual intellectual exercise. It is a covert operation. I downloaded the Bible on my phone, an Urdu translation, because even though my English was good, I wanted to experience the words in my mother tongue, the language that reached deepest into my soul. I read it at night, in my room, with the door locked and the screen brightness turned down low. I deleted the app every morning and reinstalled it every evening. Paranoid? Perhaps. But paranoia keeps you alive in Pakistan. I started with the Gospel of Matthew because Daniel had recommended it, and from the very first pages, I was drawn in, not by theological arguments, by the person of Jesus. Jesus was not what I expected. I had been taught that Isa, the Islamic name for Jesus, was a prophet, a good man, a teacher, but nothing more. Certainly not God. Certainly not the Son of God. That idea was shirk, the worst sin in Islam, and I had been trained to recoil from it the way you recoil from a hot stove. But the Jesus I was reading about in Matthew did not fit the Islamic. This Jesus had authority. He spoke, and storms obeyed. He touched lepers, and they were healed. He forgave sins, something only God can do. He said things like, "Before Abraham was, I am," using the name God gave to Moses at the burning bush. He said, "I and the Father are one." He accepted worship. He claimed to be the way, the truth, and the life. Either this man was who he claimed to be, or he was a fraud. There was no middle ground. You could not call him a good teacher or a great prophet and stop there. A good teacher does not claim to be God unless he actually is. A great prophet does not accept worship unless worship is due. This was the argument that C.S. Lewis made, liar, lunatic, or Lord, and I did not know Lewis at the time, but I arrived at the same conclusion independently. Jesus was either lying, crazy, or telling the truth. And everything I read about him, his wisdom, his consistency, his compassion, his willingness to die for what he claimed, argued against lying or lunacy, which left one option, and that option terrified me. I read for months Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, the Acts of the Apostles, the letters of Paul. I read voraciously, hungrily, desperately. Each book was a new room in the garden, each chapter a new path, each verse a new flower. And the further I went, the more beautiful. But I was not just reading the Bible. I was also doing what any good student, researching the counter-argument. I read Islamic apologetics against Christianity. I studied the Islamic objections to the Trinity, to the divinity of Christ, to the crucifixion. I wanted to give Islam a fair chance to defend itself. And here is what I found. The Islamic arguments were weaker than I had been led to believe. The claim that the Bible had been hopelessly corrupted did not match the manuscript evidence. Thousands of manuscripts, many dating to within decades of the original writing, with remarkable consistency. The claim that Jesus never claimed to be divine required ignoring large portions of the Gospels. The claim that the crucifixion did not happen contradicted virtually every historical source, including non-Christian ones. Meanwhile, the evidence for Christianity was stronger than I led to believe. The historical evidence for the resurrection, the empty tomb, the post-resurrection appearances, the transformation of the disciples from frightened men into fearless preachers, was compelling. Not proof in the mathematical sense, but evidence. The kind of evidence that, if it were presented in a court of law, would be taken very seriously. I shared my findings with Daniel. We began meeting regularly, always discreetly, always in places where we would not be overheard. He answered my questions with patience and intellectual honesty. When I raised objections, he engaged them seriously. When he did not know the answer, he said so. His intellectual integrity was as compelling as his faith. Before I go further, I want to speak to anyone watching who is in the middle of their own exploration. Maybe you are reading the Bible in secret, right? Maybe you are watching this video with one earbud in, afraid that someone will walk in and see what is on your screen. Maybe you are carrying questions that you have been told not to ask. I want you to know that your curiosity is not a sin. It is a gift. God gave you a mind that wants to understand, and He is not threatened by your questions. He is not angry when you doubt. He is not insulted when you investigate. A God who is afraid of questions is not much of a God. The real God, the God I found in the pages of the Bible, welcomes questions, because truth does not fear examination. Only lies fear examination. If you are in the middle of your search, keep going. And if this video is helping, subscribe to this channel and leave a comment telling me where you are on the journey. You are not alone. There are more of us than you think. Now let me tell you about the moment everything came together. My conversion was not a single dramatic moment. It was more like a sunrise, a gradual brightening that happened so naturally that by the time I noticed, the light was everywhere. But there was a night that I consider the turning point. The night the garden door fully opened. I was 25. It was a Thursday evening in March. I was alone in my room at home in Gulberg. My parents were downstairs watching television. Bilal was out with friends. The house was quiet, except for the distant sound of a Pakistani drama serial and the hum of the ceiling. I was reading the Gospel of John, chapter 10. Jesus says, "I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. I know my sheep and my sheep know, just as the Father knows me and I know the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep." I stopped reading. I read it again and again. I know my sheep and my sheep know me. He knows me. Not knows about me, knows me, the way a shepherd knows each individual sheep, not as a number in a flock, as a name, as a face, as a specific, irreplaceable, beloved individual. And then, I lay down my life for the sheep. He does not just know me, He dies for me, not reluctantly, not out of obligation, willingly, lovingly. The good shepherd does not run when the wolf comes. He stands between the wolf and the sheep and he takes the blow. I set my phone down on my bed. I closed my eyes. And I did something I had never done before. I spoke to Jesus, not to Allah, not to God in the abstract, to Jesus, by name. I said, "Jesus, I have been reading about you for months. I have studied the arguments for and against. I have examined the evidence, and I believe you are who you say you are. I believe you are the Son of God. I believe you are the Good Shepherd, and I want to be your sheep. I want to know you the way you know me. I want to be loved the way you love." I paused, took a breath. I am scared. I am so scared of what this means, for my family, for my future, for my safety, but I am more scared of living the rest of my life without you. I am more scared of going back to the locked room when I have already seen the garden. So here I am. I am yours. Whatever it costs, I am yours. What happened next was the most beautiful experience of my life. I felt love. Not the word love, not the concept of love. Love itself. Love as a physical, tangible, overwhelming reality. It started in my chest. A warmth that was not temperature but something deeper, and it expanded outward, filling my body, my mind, my room, my entire world. It was as if someone had opened a floodgate, and pure, undiluted, concentrated love had come pouring through, washing over everything, dissolving fear and doubt and shame the way water dissolves salt. I was crying. Of course I was crying. You cannot encounter that kind of love without crying. It is too much, too big, too good. The human body was not designed to contain that much goodness, so it overflows through the eyes. And in the middle of that overwhelming love, I felt known, not watched, not monitored, not evaluated, known. The way you feel known when someone who has loved you your entire life looks into your eyes and sees everything, every flaw, every failure, every secret, every shame, and their eyes do not change, they do not flinch, they do not look away, they just keep loving. That was the garden. Not a theology, not a religion, not a system of rules and rituals and obligations. A person, a living, present, knowing, loving person. The Good Shepherd who knew my name had laid down his life for me before I even his. I sat on my bed in my room in Gulberg, Lahore, Pakistan, and I was the happiest human being on the planet. Not because my circumstances had changed, nothing external was different. My parents were still downstairs, the blasphemy law was still on the books. The challenges ahead were still enormous, but inside me, in the deepest and most fundamental part of who I was, everything had changed. The locked room was open, the garden was real, and I was home. Here is something I want you to understand about my story, because it is different from some of the stories you might hear on this channel. My journey, while dangerous and difficult, was also profoundly joyful. From the very beginning, from the moment I first opened the garden door, joy was the dominant note. Not fear, not anguish, joy. I know that might sound strange given the context. Pakistan, blasphemy laws, family honor, social ostracism. There was plenty to be afraid of, but the joy was bigger than the fear. It was louder, it was deeper, it was more real. And I want to share that with you because I think sometimes conversion stories focus so heavily on the cost that they forget to celebrate the gain. And the gain is extraordinary. After my conversion, I experienced a transformation that I can only describe as becoming more myself, not less. More. As if I had been wearing a costume my entire life and had finally taken it off and discovered the real person, and I became more creative. I had always been a good programmer, but my work had been competent, not inspired. After my conversion, something shifted in my creative process. I started seeing beauty in code, not just functionality, but elegance. I started designing things that were not just efficient. My professors noticed, my classmates noticed. Something had been unlocked. I became more compassionate. Pakistan is a country with enormous inequality. There are people living in incredible wealth and people living in devastating poverty, sometimes on the same street. Before my conversion, I saw this inequality the way most middle-class Pakistanis see it, as unfortunate, but inevitable. After my conversion, I saw it differently. I saw it as intolerable, because every person I passed on the street, the beggar, the street sweeper, the child selling flowers at the traffic light, was a person known and loved by the Good Shepherd. Their poverty was not just an economic problem, it was a spiritual one, and I felt called to do something about it. I started volunteering, quietly, without drawing attention. I worked with a small NGO that provided education for street children in Lahore. I taught basic computer skills to kids who had never touched a keyboard, and every time I looked into their eyes, those bright, hungry, hopeful eyes, I saw the love of Jesus reflected back at me. These were his sheep, too, and he had sent me to be a small part of their care. I became more peaceful. The anxiety that had been a constant companion my entire life, the anxiety of performance, of meeting expectations, of being good enough for God, dissolved. Not overnight, but steadily, like ice melting in the sun, because I was no longer trying to earn God's love. I had it. It was given. It was free. And from that secure foundation of being unconditionally loved, the anxiety had nothing to feed on. My mother noticed the change. She said, "Rizwan, you seem different lately, lighter, happier. What happened?" I said, "Nothing, Mama. I am just grateful." She smiled and said, "Alhamdulillah, praise God." And I agreed with her. I was praising God, just not the way she thought. Daniel noticed too. He said, "You are glowing, bro. The light is coming through." He was right. The light was coming through, not in a supernatural, visible way, in the way that a person who has discovered deep joy cannot hide it. It radiates. It shows in your eyes, your smile, your posture, your voice. You become, without trying, a different kind of presence, a warmer presence, a gentler presence, a more hopeful presence. And people are drawn to warmth. They are drawn to gentleness. They are drawn to hope, even when they cannot name what is drawing them. I want to tell you about Daniel, because his story is woven into mine, and because his courage inspired everything that came after. Daniel was not just a believer, he was an activist. He was involved in interfaith dialogue groups, in Christian advocacy organizations, in efforts to reform the blasphemy law. He was vocal, visible, and unapologetically Christian in a country where being those things could get you killed. I asked him once, "Are you not afraid?" He said, "Of course I am." But fear is not the opposite of courage. Fear is the context in which courage operates. If there were nothing to fear, there would be nothing courageous about speaking up. I am afraid and I speak anyway. That is the whole point. Daniel taught me that faith and courage are inseparable. You cannot truly follow Jesus and remain silent, because Jesus was not silent. He spoke truth to power. He challenged the religious establishment. He called out hypocrisy. He defended the marginalized. And he did all of this knowing that it would lead to his death. He did it anyway, because love demanded it. Daniel also taught me about the Pakistani Christian community, a community I had been largely unaware of despite living in the same country. He took me to church, not to convert me, I was already converted but to introduce me to the family I did not know I had. The first time I attended a Pakistani church service was a revelation. It was a small church in a low-income neighborhood of Lahore. The building was modest, concrete walls, plastic chairs, a wooden cross on the wall. The congregation was mostly poor, laborers, domestic workers, daily wage earners, the people whose labor keeps Pakistan running but whose existence Pakistan barely acknowledges, and they were worshipping with a joy that made the walls shake. Singing in Urdu and Punjabi, clapping, swaying, some dancing. The music was not polished. An old keyboard, a dolki drum, a couple of voices that were strong and passionate, if not technically perfect. But the spirit in that room was electric. These people, who had nothing by the world's standards, no wealth, no status, no power, had something that all the wealth and status and power in Pakistan could not buy. They had joy, real, deep, unshakable, radiant joy. I stood among them and I sang. And I thought about the mosques I had attended my entire life. Grand, beautiful, architecturally magnificent mosques where the worship was solemn and ordered and reverent. And I realized that I had never once felt in a mosque what I was feeling in this concrete room with plastic chairs. I had never felt the presence of God in worship the way I was feeling it. It was not about the building. It was not about the music. It was about the hearts. These were people who knew they were loved. And that knowledge, that deep, foundational, unshakable knowledge, set them free. Free to sing, free to dance, free to be fully, unreservedly alive in the presence of their God. I wanted that. I had found it privately, in my room, in my secret reading, but experiencing it communally with other believers amplified it 100-fold. Worship is not meant to be solitary. It is meant to be shared. And sharing it with the Pakistani church, those beautiful, marginalized, joyful people, became one of the great blessings of my life. I kept my faith secret for about 2 years. 2 years of praying to Jesus while performing Islamic rituals. 2 years of reading the Bible on a phone that I swept clean every morning. 2 years of attending church with Daniel while telling my parents I was at study groups. The double life was unsustainable. Not because of the practical difficulty, although those were real, but because the person I was becoming in Christ was fundamentally incompatible with deception. Jesus said, "The truth will set you free," and he was right. The truth had set me free, but I was still living a lie, and the freedom and the lie could not coexist. I decided to tell my family. I knew the risks. I had heard the story. Pakistani families have disowned children for less. In some cases, families have resorted to violence. Honor killings, while primarily associated with other issues, are not unheard of in cases of apostasy. And even if my family did not resort to violence, the social consequences would be devastating, for them as much as for me. I chose to tell my mother first. My reasoning was similar to other converts I have talked to. Mothers, despite their devotion to Islam, often have a love for their children that transcends theology. I was betting on that love. I chose a Friday afternoon. My father was at the mosque. Bilal was out. Sana was in Islamabad. My mother was in the kitchen, making chai, the eternal Pakistani activity that accompanies every conversation, every crisis, every moment of significance. I sat at the kitchen table and said, "Mama, I need to talk to you about something important." She poured the chai and sat across from me. The chai was perfect, as always. Strong, sweet, milky, fragrant with cardamom. I held the cup and felt its warmth and thought about how this might be the last cup of chai my mother ever made for me. I told her about the questions, about Daniel, about the Bible, about Jesus, about the garden. I told her calmly, gently, with love in every word. I told her that I was not rejecting her, or the family, or Pakistan. I was following a truth that I could not deny. My mother listened. She did not interrupt. She did not scream. She did not cry, at least, not immediately. She just listened, holding her chai, her face unreadable. When I finished, there was a long silence. Then she set her cup down and said, in Urdu, with a voice that trembled only slightly, "Rizwan, do you know what this means? In this country? For this family?" I said, "Yes, Mom, I know." She said, "Your father will not accept it. Bilal will not accept it. The community will not accept it. You are putting yourself in danger. You are putting all of us in danger." I said, "I know, and I am sorry. I wish it were different, but I cannot pretend to believe something I do not believe. Not anymore." She was quiet for a long time. Then she did something unexpected. She reached across the table and took my hand. She held it firmly and said, "You are my son. Whatever you believe, you are my son. I do not understand this. I do not agree with it, but I will not lose you." I started crying. The relief of those words, "I will not lose you," was like a dam breaking. All the fear, all the anticipation, all the dread that had been building for weeks poured out in tears. She cried too. We sat in the kitchen, holding hands, crying, the chai growing cold between us. And in that moment, despite everything, despite the danger and the difficult and the uncertain future, I felt a profound gratitude, because my mother's love, while not accepting of my faith, was accepting, and that was a gift I had not dared to hope for. My father's response was harder. my mother told him. She chose the timing carefully. A weekend evening, when he was relaxed, when the house was quiet. I was not present for their conversation, but I heard it through the walls. My mother's voice, measured and careful. My father's rising and falling, moving through shock, anger, confusion, and something that sounded like grief. He came to my room later that he stood in the doorway, did not sit, did not come in. His face was hard, the engineer's face, the face that dealt in measurements and calculation. He said, "Your mother told me, is it true?" I said, "Yes, Baba." He said, "This is a phase. You are young. You have been influenced by bad company. You will come back to Islam." I said, "It is not a phase, Baba. I have studied this for years. I know what I believe." He stared at me for a long moment. Then he said, "We will get you help. There are scholars, good scholars, who can answer whatever questions you have. You will see that Islam is the truth." I said, "I have studied the arguments, Baba, both sides. This is my conclusion." His face shifted, the hardness cracked, and beneath it, I saw something I had never seen on my father's face before. Pain, not anger. Pain. The pain of a father whose son has chosen a path he cannot follow. He said, "Do not speak of this outside this house, to anyone. Do you understand? If this gets out, we are finished. All of us." I said, "I understand." He turned and left. He did not speak to me for 3 days after that. When he finally did, it was about mundane things. Work, the weather, a cricket match on television. The subject of my faith was never raised again. It became the elephant in the room, massive, unmissable, and completely unacknowledged. I want to stop here for a moment and recognize something. My parents' response, while not what I hoped for, was better than many converts experience. They did not throw me out. They did not beat me. They did not report me. They did not disown me. They chose to keep me in the family, under conditions of silence and secrecy. And that choice, that decision to prioritize family over religious obligation, took courage. More courage than my parents probably realize. If your parents are struggling with your choices, whatever those choices are, try to see their response through the lens of love. Even when love looks like anger or silence or denial, it is often love. Love that is confused, love that is scared, love that does not know how to express itself in the face of something it does not understand. And if you are a parent whose child has made a choice you do not understand, be kind, be patient. Your child is not your enemy. They are your child. And the love you show them in this moment may be the most important thing you ever do. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that. Let us keep going. The arrangement with my parents lasted about a year. During that time, I continued attending church with Daniel, continued reading the Bible, continued growing in my faith. My mother and I developed an unspoken truce. She did not ask about my religious activities, and I did not discuss them. My father retreated into work and pretended everything was normal. Bilal, my younger brother, was never told. The secret was kept within the tightest possible circle. But secrets in Pakistan have a way of escaping. In a society where everyone watches everyone, where neighbors know your schedule and your visitors and your habits, living a double life requires constant vigilance. And vigilance is exhausting. The trigger for my departure was not a dramatic confrontation. It was a rumor. Someone in the neighborhood, I never found out who, noticed that I had been seen entering a church building in a Christian neighborhood. The rumor spread quickly, as rumors do in Pakistan. It reached my father through a colleague who asked, casually, "Is it true that your son has been visiting a church?" My father denied it immediately, but the damage was done. The question had been asked. The suspicion had been planted. And in Pakistan, suspicion is nearly as dangerous as proof. My father came to me that evening, visibly shaken. He said, "You have been seen at a church. People are talking. This has to stop. Now." I said, "Baba, I cannot stop being who I am." He said, with a desperation I had never heard in his voice, "Then you have to leave. Not this house. This country. If this gets worse. If someone makes a formal accusation, the blasphemy law, Rizwan, they will kill you. They have killed people for less." He was right, and we both knew it. The decision to leave Pakistan was made within the week. Daniel helped. His network of Christian contacts included people experienced in helping endangered converts leave the country. The process was quick, because the danger was immediate. Within a month, I had a visa to a Western country and a plane ticket. The night before I left, my mother cooked my favorite meal, biryani, the way only she could make it, with layers of fragrant rice and tender meat and fried onions and whole spices. She set the table for the family and we ate together. My parents, Bilal, who still did not know the real reason I was leaving, and me. It was the most painful meal of my life. Every bite tasted like goodbye. After dinner, my mother came to my room. She brought a small package wrapped in cloth. She said, "Open it when you are there." Then she hugged me. A long, tight, trembling hug. She said, "Be safe, Merab, my son. Be safe and be happy. And whatever God you pray to, ask him to bring you back to me someday." I held her, and I promised I would. My father drove me to the airport the next morning. We were both quiet during the drive. The Lahore traffic swirled around us. Rickshaws, buses, motorcycles, the beautiful chaos of a city I was leaving and might never return to. When we reached the departure terminal, my father parked the car and turned to me. He said, "I do not agree with your choice. I will never agree, but you are my son, and I would rather have you alive and far away than dead and close." It was the most honest thing my father had ever said to me, and it was love. Not the love I wanted, the love of acceptance, but the love he could give, the love of protection, and I received it with gratitude. I hugged him. He held me for a long time. Then he said, "Go," before I changed my mind. I went. I have been in Europe for 4 years now, and I want to tell you about what the garden looks like when it is in full bloom. I work as a software developer for a tech company. My programming skills, sharpened by the creative awakening that followed my conversion, have served me well. I write code that is elegant and efficient, and I take pride in my work. I am good at what I do, and I know that the creativity that fuels my work is not just talent, it is gift. A gift from the one who created creativity itself. I am active in a church community that has become my family, a diverse, multilingual, multicultural family of believers from every corner of the world. I lead a small group for converts from Muslim background. There are about 20 of us in my city. We meet weekly. We eat Pakistani food because some things are non-negotiable, and we study the Bible, we pray, and we share our struggles and our victory. Every person in that group has a story like mine. Every story is different in the details, but the same in the essence. They found the garden, and the garden was worth everything. I am in regular contact with my parents. My mother calls me every week. We talk about food, about the weather, about Bilal's cricket matches, about Sana's children, about everything and nothing. We rarely discuss religion, but the love between us flows freely, unobstructed by doctrinal differences. She is still Muslim, I am Christian, and we are still mother and son. Some bonds are stronger than theology. My father and I talk less frequently, but when we do, there is a warmth that was not there before. Distance and time have softened. He asks about my job, my health, my apartment. He gives me advice about finances, about career decisions, about practical matters. He is still an engineer at heart, and engineers solve problems. Our relationship is not fully healed, it may never be, but it is alive, and alive is enough for Bilal knows. He found out about a year ago through a series of conversations that I will not detail as they are his story to tell. His response was surprisingly measured. He said, "Pai, I think you are wrong, but I am not going to pretend you do not exist." Coming from a 27-year-old Pakistani man raised in the same environment I was, that response was remarkably generous. We play online video games together on weekends. It is our way of staying connected without having to navigate the theological minefield. Just two brothers, shooting virtual aliens, maintaining a bond that the real world tried to break. Daniel is still in Lahore, still brave, still vocal, still unapologetically Christian. We video call regularly. He has become a prominent voice in the Pakistani Christian community, advocating for minority rights, challenging the blasphemy law, building bridges between Muslims and Christians. He is everything I admire: courageous, principled, joyful, and absolutely unwilling to be silenced. He is also, I should mention, my best friend. The friendship that began over debate club arguments has become the most important human relationship in my life. And me? I am becoming. That is the best word I can find. I am becoming the person I was always meant to be. The curious boy who asked too many questions has grown into a man who has found the answers. Not all of them, but the important ones. The locked room has been opened. The garden is real, and I am walking through it every day, discovering new paths, new flowers, new colors that I did not know existed. I am studying theology part-time, not because I want to become a professional theologian, but because I want to love God with my mind as well as my heart. The curiosity that got me into trouble in Pakistan is now serving me well. It drives me to understand my faith deeply, rigorously, intellectually. I want to be able to explain what I believe and why, not to win arguments, but to help others who are walking the same path, to be a Daniel for someone else's Rizwan. I am also writing a blog, initially, where I share reflections on faith, culture, identity, and the intersection of all three. I write about what it means to be a Pakistani Christian, an identity that most people do not know exists. I write about the beauty of Pakistani culture and the beauty of the gospel, and how the two can coexist, can even enrich each other. I write about biryani and baptism, about chai and communion, about cricket and Christ, because faith does not erase culture, it transforms it. It takes everything beautiful about who you are and makes it more beautiful. I want to tell you about one more thing that happened recently, because it captures the essence of what life in the garden looks like. Last month, I received a message from a young Pakistani man. I will call him Hamza. He was 23, a computer science student at a university in Karachi, and he had found my blog. He wrote to me in Urdu, and his message was long and rambling and urgent, the way messages are when someone has been carrying something heavy and finally finds a place to set it down. He said he had been reading the Bible in secret for 6 months. He said he was terrified. He said he felt like he was going crazy. He said everyone around him was Muslim and he could not talk to anyone, and he did not know if what he was feeling was real or if he was losing his mind. I read his message and I saw myself. 6 years ago, sitting in my room in Gulberg, phone brightness turned down, heart racing, the same questions, the same fear, the same desperate need to know that what was happening was real. I wrote back. I told him my story. I told him that what he was feeling was not madness, it was awakening. I told him about the garden. I told him that the curiosity he was feeling was not a defect in his faith, it was a gift from God. And I told him what I most needed to hear when I was in his position. You are not alone. We have been corresponding since then. I am being for Hamza what Daniel was for me, a friend, a guide, a human bridge between the locked room and the garden, and the cycle continues. The love that found me is flowing through me to someone else. The garden is growing. That is the nature of grace. It does not stop with it flows through you. It uses you, not as a tool, as a channel. A river of living water flowing from the source through every person it touches, bringing life wherever it goes. I am a channel. I am a river. I am a bridge. And every day I wake up grateful for the curiosity that started it all. The questions I was told not to ask turned out to be the most important questions of my life. And the answers, the beautiful, terrifying, life-giving answers, led me to the garden. I am almost done, but I want to leave you with something. Not a theological argument, not a list of reasons to believe. Something simpler, something I have learned from living in the garden. The garden is not a place, it is a person. Jesus is not a religion to be practiced. He is a person to be known, and knowing him, truly knowing him, the way the shepherd knows the sheep and the sheep know the shepherd, is the most transformative experience available to a human being. It does not make your life easy. My life is not easy. I live far from home. I miss my mother's biryani. I miss the sound of the azan echoing through the streets of Lahore at dawn. I miss the chaos and the warmth and the impossible beauty of Pakistan. I carry losses that will never be fully healed, but I also carry something that outweighs every loss. I carry the knowledge that I am loved, not for what I do, for who I am. I carry the peace of a man who has stopped trying to earn God's favor and has started resting in it. I carry the joy of someone who has found the garden and knows that no one can take it away. If you are in Pakistan right now, watching this on a phone with the brightness turned down and the volume low, I want you to know something. The garden is real. I have been there. I am there now. And there is a path from where you are to where I am. It is not easy. It is not safe, but it is there. And the one who made the path is walking it. If you are in any country, in any situation, carrying any burden, I want you to know the same thing. The locked room is not what they told you it was. Behind that door is not a monster. Behind that door is the most beautiful thing you will ever see. And the key is already in you. It has always been in your hand. The key is simply this: openness, willingness to look, willingness to ask, willingness to say, what if everything I have been told about that room is wrong? Open the door. Step through. The garden is waiting. My name is Rizwan Malik. I am 31 years old. I am from Lahore, Pakistan. I was raised in the land of the pure. I discovered that purity is not a matter of law or ritual or national identity. Purity is a matter of the heart. And the heart is made pure not by what we do for God, but by what God has done for us. I am a programmer, a theologian in training, a terrible cook who misses his mother's biryani, a cricket fan, a coffee drinker, a book lover, and a follower of Jesus Christ. I am all of these things at once, and none of them contradicts the others, because the garden does not ask you to be less than you. It invites you to be more. I found the garden, and I want everyone to find it, not because I am right and everyone else is wrong, but because it is good. It is so, so good. And good things are meant to be shared. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for giving my story a place to land. If this video moved you, here is what I am asking. Leave a comment below. Tell me about the locked room in your life, the thing you have been told to fear, the question you have been told not to ask. You do not have to use your real name. You do not have to reveal your location. Just share. Because sharing breaks the isolation. And isolation is the enemy of truth. Share this video. Send it to someone who is curious. Send it to someone who is searching. Send it to someone who has been told, do not ask such questions. This video is the answer to that command. Ask. Ask everything. The truth is not afraid of your questions. And subscribe to this channel. We are building a garden here. A garden of stories, of testimonies, of real lives transformed by a real... Every video is a new flower. Every subscriber is a gardener. Help us grow. Until next time, my friends, be curious, be brave, be loved. My name is Rizwan, and this is my testimony. Khuda Hafiz. God protect you, and may you find the garden.